Good morning. Welcome to Coffee at 10, or welcome back to Coffee at 10 after our spring break. We are so excited today to have Eeva Redmond here with us. First, we want to say, as always, thank you to Roast and Toast for our coffee and pastries. If you're only attending online, one of these days you got to make it into the gallery to make sure that you get some delicious Roast and Toast goodies. And also thank you to our visual arts presenting sponsor, Comfort Keepers, without whom we wouldn't even have the exhibitions to do our Coffee at 10s around. So today Eeva is going to talk to us about, you know what, I'm going to back up. Eeva is the creative director and founder at Elder Piper Brewery. I'm sorry, Elder Piper Beer and Cider, not brewery. Yeah. Which is this really cool little place over off of Emmett Street.
Yep. Washington and Baxter.
Yes. And we, Crooked Tree has our art club there every second Thursday of the month. So we are working a lot with Eeva to kind of just be in each other's lives, I guess.
Yeah.
Crooked Tree and so Eeva is going to be talking to us today about the art and collaboration, about the labels, the creation of the labels for the products that they create in-house. So we are very excited to welcome Eeva.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you, Crooked Tree, for having me. It is a pleasure to be up here and talking to y'all. It was really fun for me to talk a little bit more about the arts. I haven't been in this brain in a while, so it's fun. When I first was kind of thinking, for me, the title of this presentation, Art in a Bottle, was a real sticking point because we don't really think about what we put into the bottle as art. We think of it as artisanal, but there's definitely art on the bottle. And that connection between us as makers of beer and cider and our artists who we work with to put these labels, to share their art, an aesthetic peek inside our bottles of beer and cider. That's really the connection I want to talk about. And so we have loved having Art Club with us at the brewery, because as you'll see through this presentation, since the very beginning of Elder Piper, we've always been a maker space. We've always been a space of creativity. And you'll see those interactions here throughout the presentation. So art in a bottle, art on a bottle, that comes in large part from my experience. Before I was in beer, I was in the art world. I'm a Concord kid. So I grew up in the arts here in Petoskey. My second job was here at Crooked Tree, actually. I worked at the front desk when I was 15. And I was thinking about that as I got into this presentation. And I remember when I was working at Crooked Tree, I had the opportunity to curate a teen mural art project over in Harbor Springs at the Hotel Janelle. They had this big wall that eventually was going to be part of the hotel. Yeah, my friend Ellen remembers this. And so I got together these 4 or 5 teen artists, and we built this big mural on the wall there. And that was my first time experiencing managing a project, a group of creatives like that. And it was really the first time I saw myself as a curator, as someone who brings together people and ideas and makes them bigger than the sum of their parts. And that's the through line of my whole career, is taking people and ideas and making them into something bigger, telling a bigger story together. And so that's what these bottles, that's where it really started, was bringing those different pieces together. So just to give you a little more context, I'm not going to read all the slides to you. They're just here to give support. But I have worked in the craft beer industry all over the country for the last 15 years. And of course, before that, worked in the art world here at Crooked Tree, down in Kalamazoo, all the way over in New York City. I thought that was the world I wanted to be in. And then the lure of the fun of craft beer took me into a different artisanal path. So when we founded Elder Piper, that background in the arts, I was really, as I think you'll see, in every breath of the business of Elder Piper, there's care and intentionality. And that's true in the beers and ciders we make, but it's also true in the aesthetic of the brand. So our brand look and feel itself was designed by my friend Ellen Caitlin, She is a freelance graphic designer, a different Ellen, not our Ellen Unblanchard here. She lives down in Georgia. We worked together when I was living in Asheville, and she helped us come up with she took all of my artistic connections. I was really inspired by Scandinavian printmaking. I was really into I wanted stark minimalism. I didn't want any serifs in our fonts. I wanted a blank canvas that we could imbue meaning into from the start. And I wanted it to reflect the beauty of Northern Michigan in a simple way that allowed us to continue to build and develop. So from our logo here, this is a custom font off of a Scandinavian foundry called Vixjo. And the one I want to draw your attention to, though, is our logo mark, because once you see this, you won't be able to unsee it. Our logo is the pitcher's thistle, and that is a native species up here in Northern Michigan. It grows on the dunes. It's an endangered species, so we wanted to give it a spotlight. And it's one that holds its community together. It has deep roots, and it grows on the dunes of Lake Michigan. And those deep roots, they hold the sand together in its community. And that's what we wanted to do with our business. So this has become a symbol of who we are as a brand. So there's the pitcher's thistle. You can see it has that same kind of curvature to it. It's a little wild. But also, Ellen fell in love with Petoskey stones. Our designer, Ellen, just loved the little hexagons that it had to it. And so when she designed this, with that sort of Scandinavian printmaking in mind, we wanted something reproducible in any color, and something that could be like a stamp. And so she designed it to fit into the hexagon of a Petoskey stone facet. So that's how it got this specific shape with the corners, is that connection to the Petoskey stone and this place. So now that you see that, you'll see it everywhere in our brand, and you'll think of Petoskey stones in a unique new way. So that's a little bit about the underpinnings, the aesthetics of Elder Piper. Then we got to our very first bottle release, and we wanted to start building connections to more local artists. We wanted to be bigger than us, right? And so this is the aesthetic we designed for our bottles. This is our mock-up from our very original concept. And in it, you'll notice the front of the bottle is just a piece of art. It's just the art. And our goal there was to really play with the negative space. We wanted this to be an aesthetic peek into what's inside. So there's no frame, there's no text. My hope was that it would be as though you were looking into the bottle aesthetically. So all the information is on the back of the bottle, and on the front of the bottle is just the artwork to tell the story. So that's kind of heavy lifting for a piece of art and for a collaboration with an artist. So in choosing who we were going to work with for our first pieces, I needed someone who was willing to go on this journey with me. And I chose my friend, Katie Brines. I took this picture of her enjoying a pint with her husband at the brewery. She lives in DC, but she's from Petoskey, and her art style is abstract. It's inspired by her experience living here around the US, also living abroad over in Norway, where her husband is from. So there's this wonderful connection to Scandinavian design in her work that I felt really resonated with our brand ethos. And together, we came up with our concept. So this is how that interaction went. I reached out to all the artists we work with ahead of this presentation, and I asked them, is it okay if I publish our email correspondence in a PowerPoint? They all said it was fine. They were flattered to be included. So I have the blessing of all of our artists for sharing their emails. So here is the prompt that I gave her. We were going to do 2 beers in 2024. This was our very first year in business, and we wanted to celebrate making it through our first year with 2 bottles. And I wanted them to interact. One was going to be this Belgian strong ale, which is a bubbly, effervescent, light-colored style. And the other is an imperial stout. So we had lightness, we had darkness. And I wanted her to create a set of artworks that would interact with each other aesthetically, but also represent these beers inside the bottle. Now, when we had this conversation, we hadn't brewed the beer yet. This is what I think we're doing um, in conversation with my husband, our brewer Trace, we came up with this dialogue about what the beer would be like, what it would taste like, what it would smell like. Showed her all the ingredients we would use, how we'd put them together. And this is it. This is all the context we gave her to create her artwork. And then we said, whatever you think pulls all of this together, we're excited about it. So the artwork she created, oh, just to give you, we'll set the stage a little more. So the Belgian strong ale, it's a golden colored beer. We used Saaz hop, the oldest hop variety, so it has history to it. That Saaz brings a lovely spiciness to it. The Simcoe and Mosaic hops, they bring in these fruity flavors to layer on top of this golden malted barley. The yeast is really the magic part of this beer. We use 2 different strains of yeast blended together to create both flavor from the yeast in our beer, but also to give it this sparkling effervescence and brightness. So those were kind of the adjectives, right, going through her head as she made her piece. And this is the final piece she came up with. And this is what she emailed me back as, this is kind of what I was thinking around this piece of art. And it was so interesting to me to see what resonated with her. And that Mosaic, the name of a variety of hop that we featured in the beer, was the thing that stood out. That idea of a mosaic, bringing pieces together, playful winter activities. As a set, we wanted this to evoke the lightness and the darkness of winter. And I think she really captured the lightness here with those different pieces of the dark green, the pink. These are all like a mosaic tile in an abstract sense. And we'll get into the little figure in a little later, but that is a figure. So this is what it looked like on the bottle. I had grand intentions of bringing bottles with me to show you the actual thing we made. That would have been good. I left them at home. So we have lots of pictures of bottles, but they're about this tall, 750 milliliters, so the size of a wine bottle. Same concept there, but they're brown glass, and the taper is a little more, in my opinion, elegant than your standard wine bottle. A little smoother on the neck. And these are photos by another local photographer, Kyler Phillips, fantastic nature photographer. He loves to do work outside, and he really likes our beer and cider. So I gave him some bottles, and he went out into the woods with them and gave us some images that further evoke all of these different playful maker spaces and connections we've got. So there is the bottle all together. That was Silver Bell, our Belgian strong ale, with artwork by Katie Brines. But it was a set, right? So there's a second half. The second half was the Imperial Stout. So this is all about layers of different malt flavors. There's chocolate malt, different British malts. I think my favorite part of this conversation I recorded with my husband, Trace, is one of our favorite quotes is about, did I cut it? That would be a shame. Oh, nope, I didn't. One of our favorite brewers down in Florida, he talks about layering malt as akin to building layers on a canvas. So it's like layers of paint. You know, you've got your gesso, right? That base layer, and then you'll add in the background colors, usually, depending on your medium, a wash of colors. Then after that, they'll start to bring in the figures, right? The rough shapes, and the detail on top of that. And that's very much how we approach making these big, dark imperial stouts. Layers of different malted barley to create texture, color, and flavor. And so this beer features lots of different British malts. We've got layers of chocolate and cocoa, a little bit of caramel flavor. There's dark fruit character from it. So I don't know about you, but when I think of those, I'm starting to think of colors. Is anyone else starting to think of like different colors associated with that? Well, that is really what inspired this next piece. This is the final product that Katie did for that label. You also note the pieces she made were square. And so when I received them from her, she'd actually broken them into 3 slices because she knew that the shape on our bottle was rectangular, and gave me her recommendation for which slice of this square piece. Because in both our minds, like the bottle, we're looking at that aesthetic slice into the piece. She wanted it to be kind of the same concept. It's with both, you're getting a piece of what's to come. So here is Katie's comments on this particular piece. She wanted to capture dark, cozy feelings, reflect the hearty warmth of winter activities inside, and of course, the bits of white. What I love is the parts where like the white interacts with the dark brown of the bottle, and the bottle becomes the frame for the art in the same way the art is the frame for the liquid inside. So here's how that piece came together. Oops, I didn't change that. That should say, instead of Belgian Golden Ale, that should say Black Birch Imperial Stout. I tried. PowerPoint, not my strength. Talking, I will try not to talk more than 30 minutes. So altogether, in addition to those two little excerpts that Katie sent me back, all of our correspondence was through email because she's living out in DC. She did come home to try these beers when we finished doing them, and to deliver the paintings to me so we could have them all together for the release. But her whole idea behind this was drawing from her personal experience, her love of winter from living here in growing up here in Northern Michigan, and living over in Norway. You really get a love of winter in places like this, right? When we have snow in April, got to find like a deep-seated love for winter. And I am still working on it. Work in progress on the love of winter. But, you know, it's moments like these where she's right. There's the coziness of inside. There's the bright whiteness of outside. And that contrast, I mean, that's a maker's space. So the little figure she tells us here is a reference to the barn elves that are part of Norwegian Christmas tradition. And I also really like that it's wearing its little striped pajamas. And that is a nod to her favorite striped, I guess her striped union suit from the local wool mill that she would use to stay warm while working in her studio. I've been in many artist studios as a freelance curator, and they are usually cold. I don't know if that's like gets your creative juices going, or we're all broke for our art, or I don't know, everyone's heat doesn't seem to work. And so I totally resonated with this wearing long johns. I wear them most of the year, right? And I thought that hers were striped and that it made that its way into this piece. I thought that was a lot of fun. And so this is our very first bottled product, these two beers. And I was really excited because I think it really celebrated, right? Something bigger than the sum of its parts. It was a story, it was makerspace, it's indicative of who we are. And we've continued that. I took this picture last night. Sorry, guys. It's a picture of a picture that Mary B posted on social media of us together. And one of our fine guests printed out from the internet and gave to us. So layers of meaning and meta behind my glare into, yeah. So we'll move on from that. But I didn't have a picture of Mary B, so this is Mary B. With Mary B, so that was our 2024, we worked with Katie Brines. 2025, we wanted to do a set of winter beers once again. And I reached out to one of my favorite local artists, Mary B. We both were Concord kids, but we didn't go at the same time. So we didn't really know each other than through being part of the creative community here in Northern Michigan. So when I reached out to her, it was just kind of a shot in the dark. I said, hey, we're looking for an artist to collaborate with us who we can commission for our winter beer releases. We like to do them as a set, and we'll tell you about the beer. Can you make art based on our beer styles? Fortunately, she got right back to me and said, yeah, I love what you're doing. I value the place you're building within the community. Our studios, our brewery, cidery, and her studio are a block apart. She's down just off of Sheridan. She's like her beautiful artwork on the side. It's like this lovely green building with fish on it in the middle of a warehouse. It's exciting. You should go check it out. It's a beautiful space. And so we're close to each other physically. We're both anchoring creativity in our neighborhood and the growth of that down Emmett Street and into that side of town in Petoskey. So we were happy to share a neighborhood and also to work together on these pieces. So this is what we sent her. We got a little better. This time we actually knew the names of the beer before we sent it to the artist. So I was able to give her a little more context about, we're going to name this Belgian beer once again. So the Belgian beers, it's all about the magical yeast and the role it makes in carbonating the beer, giving effervescence. When you carbonate the beer in the bottle, it gets a finer quality of foam. It's more natural, it's softer, it's moussier, like chocolate mousse when I say moussier. It's got lovely color to it and texture. There's a lot of things going for bottle conditioning. The issue is it takes a lot of time. And so this we're getting better, right? Where our business is 2 now. And so we plan further in advance. And so this one we were planning in advance. We had the name of the beer. We wanted to represent cherries here in Northern Michigan. We're really proud that our beers feature fruit that's representative of Northern Michigan and all grown in Northern Michigan. Our ciders that we make are all made with apples from King Orchards, my own family's orchard, and local orchards throughout the area. So they all come from Northern Michigan. Any apple we use, it's grown right here. Our grain, for the most part, as you saw, Trace does love his British malt, so we do import some British malts. But we love to work with Great Lakes malting based in Traverse City. The majority of the grain in our beer comes from Traverse City in northwest lower Michigan. So we're trying to feature in our ingredients a taste of up north, a taste of this place. So with Mary's work, we have these local cherries from King Orchards. We've got the Belgian Strong Ale. Once again, this is going to have like a lighter amber color of beer, but that same golden quality to it. It glows just like we thought the last embers of the fire would glow as you enjoyed this beer. And so this is the work. And I will also give her, I was planning ahead, but between her time away and our timelines, she had about a month to create this work. So I was really amazed. I told her, if you can't make our timeline, it's okay. I'll release the beer later. I want to make sure you have time for your art. But Mary B is a pro and she got it done in a month. So this is the piece that she came up with for Last Embers. And this is just a repeat. Our conversations about the beer, because she was able to come chat with me in person, see the beer in process. Our conversations were in person, so I don't have email documentation of what she thought about the piece. But for her, Last Embers was all about that moment at a bonfire out on the beach on the shores of Lake Michigan. And so I love that she brought in all the cherry reds, but she also brought in that dark winter color to it, and gave us the tree line and the northern lights, which are such a big part of her work. With every artist we work with, I love that we really get a sense of their aesthetic in collaborating with us. There's so much of each of our artists in these pieces. And so there it is next to the beer. So you can see kind of the cherry ruby color reflected in the work and in the beer itself, and that moussey color of foam that's starting to dissipate because I am a great curator and not a super photographer, but I'm learning, as with every part of our business. So this is part 1. This is our cherry beer. The second part, once again, we had a lightness and a darkness to celebrate the winter season. The second beer was an imperial stout. We named it Deep Winter. And this was one we felt, this is the biggest beer we've ever brewed at 13.2% alcohol. So it's a really big beer. And we decided we wanted to have local coffee from Roast and Toast. Glad to see them make a cameo. And then maple syrup from Corthace Brothers in Boyne City. So it's local maple syrup, wanted to support those folks, get that flavor into the beer. And of course, our local coffee, that maple syrup and coffee, right? Those flavors go together. And they're kind of morning flavors. And that was something that Mary B brought into the piece. So this is her label for Deep Winter Imperial Stout. And in this, she was thinking about that morning in deep winter where the sun's rising over the winter trees. And I love the purple in this piece, right? Like that's my favorite part is I can see this moment. I've been outside in the woods in the morning as the light's coming up over the trees and the snow reflects the glare. and you get that real brightness in the midst of the depth of winter. And so I just love the way that in each of these conversations with these artists, we learn something a little more about the product we're making. And I think you definitely get an aesthetic peek inside the bottle with these. Now, this second series, we learned 700, this is a learning process for us as brewers. 750 milliliters is a lot for a 13% imperial stout. So this is a 500 milliliter bottle. So it's a little smaller. That's like 2 pints, just for context for everybody, since I neglected to bring the bottles. So in addition to these 2 series, these were really our deepest artistic back and forths. We've also worked with quite a number of other artists in a number of different ways. These are just up close, so you can see Mary B's work a little better there. She also did prints of these that we sold at the brewery, so I was happy to be able to have other ways to enrich her through this collaboration. Another artist we've worked with, who's a regular at Art Club, hope we'll see him tonight, is Greg Oberly, a friend who we met before the brewery even opened, and he was making art up here in Petoskey. And he came to us and said, honestly, I'm feeling a little burnt out creatively, and I love what you guys were doing. We were in the middle of construction, so my husband Trace and I were, if you've not been to our building, it is a 1929 Bell Telephone switchboard station. So it served the community for a long time in many capacities. We were talking earlier about how neighborhood kids had a garage band that would practice in there. And so it's been many things. It was a dance studio for a while, interior design, an upholsterer. It was Demer Tool and Die for a long, long time. In the 1940s, it was a garage, an auto shop. So this building has served our community in many ways. It's had many lives. And one of those lives was in the 1920s, all of these floorboards that we were restoring. We decided to accommodate our tanks. We had to take out half of the ceiling in one part of the building. But those floorboards, they were original to the building. The ceiling beams, they were original. So we, because we're scrappy and creative and makers, and we couldn't lose really nice old oak, we kept it all. And we planed it down, we sanded it, we denailed it. Ellen helped denail some of those boards. A lot of people had a hand in denailing and getting these boards back to their original glory. And we still have a pile of them. But that's what we used to make the bar at the brewery. That's what we used to make all the trim. And Greg had an idea to make a back panel for our logo piece, something that would be, we commissioned him to make something that would be indicative of our brand and kind of our stamp, really big right as you came into the brewery. We wanted something that said, this is what Elder Piper is aesthetically, and to use our brand. And so he came up with the idea of this sculptural piece of our logo. And as you can see here, he did a really good job. It's just 2 pieces of plywood cut together. And then he carved it out and sculpted it to give it this sense of stone and texture, like a Petoskey stone or a fossil, something heavy that had been there a long time. And we put it on the background of all of those old floorboards made into that hexagonal shape, right? I told you, never unsee the Petoskey stone facet. There it is again, to create something that was really indicative of the time and care and intentionality that goes into everything we do. And so we were really honored to work with Greg on this piece that has become so quintessentially part of our brand story. We also worked with Greg on 2 of our labels. The first one we worked with in 2024 was our Yule Fire Spiced Winter Warmer. And we have a nutcracker collection, a really big nutcracker collection. It's about 75 nutcrackers that my husband's been collecting since he was a child. And when we got married, my mother-in-law was like, here you go. Here's your nutcrackers. And I have had them in boxes for over a decade. And so when we opened the brewery, I was like, this is going to be our quirky thing. We're the Nutcracker Brewery. We have nutcrackers. So we wanted a beer that represented our quirky nutcracker collection. and a beer that inspired by gingerbread and those spiced, warm flavors of cinnamon and nutmeg and clove. All of those are the flavors in that beer. And so when Greg made this nutcracker piece, he wanted it to have, again, feel like it's emerging from the woods that are that brown glass of the bottle. It's coming forward at you with its warm, bright red coat and spicy flavors. He also worked on our first anniversary beer with us. This is our Sandhill Crane Petite Saison. Sandhill cranes have been a huge part of his art practice for a long time. And up on our farm, up in Bliss, where we have our apple orchard, we have lots of sandhill cranes. They're like dinosaurs that just stand in the field and make terrifying pterodactyl noises. And huge wingspans, right? And that red head. And this moment, although it is a moment from his experience of seeing them, he went to the Sandhill Crane migration and remembered this moment of seeing them in the field. But this could very well be our farm up in Bliss with the tree line way in the back and the big field. This fit into his practice and that he was really interested in big landscapes with a lot of negative space from the sky. And then you've got the bird in the forefront kind of tying it all together. So these are two of the pieces he did with us. This Petite Saison, it's made with wild yeast. Once again, yeast is the magic in beer in many circumstances. And it is in this beer. It has wild yeast in it. So when I say wild yeast, I mean Brettanomyces, and I mean like all the things that make kombucha. So we take a wild culture. It's one, I mean, you can make a yeast culture from just putting a cup out, right? And all of the yeast on us, on fruit, it'll collect there. And from that, you can culture it. And sometimes those little yeasty beasties will actually ferment something. You can do this with sourdough. You can make bread this way. And we make beer this way. We built some of our own cultures over the years and banked them with a yeast bank. I've always wanted to go visit the yeast bank. They keep like little tiny pieces of your yeast and then they grow it up for you when you want it. And they keep like a library of yeast. I think that's fascinating, but that's another talk. So we use these wild yeasts in this beer to give it herby earthiness. It's only 3%. So this is our lowest alcohol beer as opposed to that deep winter that's 13%. This is 3.2%. And it's in a green glass bottle because we actually wanted a little more light to interact with this beer. Light can change the flavor of the beer, which is kind of an interesting thing. They're photosensitive. And so you can get a little more, for lack of a nicer term, it gets a little skunky. If you leave a glass of beer out in the sun, especially a lager, you will notice that the flavor changes pretty quickly from that crisp, refreshing lager to one that has sort of a little earthy, skunky quality to it. But that is indicative of this Belgian style, that little bit of skunky funkiness that we love. It's fun. I promise you. And so this is a beer that was also bottle conditioned and tells that story. The last artist I wanted to showcase in our series is Marguerite Moradian, another Petoskey native who now lives down in Kalamazoo. And we knew for this beer, we knew we wanted to name it Big Brown Bat. We made Brown Bat. It's a brown ale. And then we aged it in ethnology distillation's first bourbon barrels for 4 months. So then we were like, well, that's Big Brown Bat. And it happens to be bourbon barrel aged. And we love alliteration too much. And so Big Brown Bat bourbon barrel aged beer became a thing. And our dear friend Marguerite loves bats. This is something I know from childhood, growing up here in Petoskey. She loves bats. And this is a beer we released in the harvest season, so around Halloween. And I felt that she could do this native species, the big brown bat, justice. And she was really interested in the brown materiality of the bottle as frame. And so she chose her color palette accordingly to give it that sense of the bat, once again, interacting with the flavor, right? This is that aesthetic peak. It's zooming out of the bottle towards us. And so this is the color and texture and flavor she gave us there. When I asked my team this last winter to, we made a, if you could give the gift of Elder Piper, what would you give folks? Most of them picked a bottle of our beer. And I asked them, like, why the bottle? Why is that the gift of Elder Piper? And they said, well, because it's beautiful. If I'm going to give a gift, I want something that represents the beauty of what we do. And so I was pleased to see that when we think about Elder Piper, we think about the gift of the beauty of marrying the artisanship of the beers and ciders we make with the art of these various artists. Oh, and it also has become our gallery. We have art on the walls from all of these artists, and I'm really excited to continue these collaborations, to curate our space, our community, and build something a lot greater than the sum of its parts. Thank you. I didn't check a watch, so hopefully that wasn't too long. Yes. Oh, Elder Piper, the name, is the name of one of my husband's ancestors from the 1800s. In the same way that Pitcher's Thistle has deep roots, we wanted the name and our brand to have roots in our personal stories. And so we're in my hometown. This is where my roots are. So we wanted to bring his roots in a big way. Yeah, of course. Any other questions?
So Eva, given your artistic background, brewing background, with craft beers, obviously the label is important, and you go to the grocery store, the beer store.
Yeah, so many labels.
So many beers, the label is the best thing about them.
Right? Yep. I've done that.
Thinking, what would be some other than your own that you like or dislike?
Like, did I like the labels? Well, again, my personal taste tends towards that minimalism. I find, particularly when I'm in the store, on the grocery store shelf, there's so much maximalism in craft beer. And actually, I tend to shy away from the term craft beer about what we do, because I think it has cultural connotations now beyond just saying craft beer. For me, craft beer has become something inherently male, inherently, and I think craft beer, I'm sorry, but my stereotype is kind of what my husband looks like. It's a bearded man with a flannel on, and jeans, and I am not that man. And yet craft beer is my industry and my world. And so I like breweries that tell a different story. One that I have enjoyed lately getting to know is Farm Club up in the Leelanau. They have a really minimalist label. They do cans. And it's a matte, kind of linen textured label with like soft pastel colors. And they always do just like different color gradients and the name really small at the bottom. And it always looks like some sort of Scandinavian, like Marimekko print. So that, that really resonates with me. And I have a place in my heart for that look and feel on a label. And the liquid inside matches, I'm proud to say, for them. And as we've gotten to know them, they let us come and watch their canning line run. We just got a canning line, and so they invited us down to see how it runs so we could learn how to better operate ours. And that connection between brewers, that's something I also really value.
Can you talk a little bit about your collaboration with Crooked Tree and Art Club and what your goals are and your intent, how that's going, because it seems to be having sticking power?
Thank you. Yeah, great question. That has been a lot of fun. When Alyssa and I first started talking, it felt like such a natural fit to me, having been part of the Crooked Tree community since I was a child. I've taken advantage of the art world here. I'm not a very good artist, if I'm honest. I'm a much better connector of artists than I am maker of art. But I have had work displayed during these Concord Petoskey. I would have been over there. Had work displayed here. And I know the pride that made me feel to be part of this community of artists and getting to create a space that is a maker space. I mean, that we had Greg come to us before we opened and say, I feel creative energy here. and I want to re-engage my craft, and I just need a space with other makers to create together. That's always been part of who we are. And so it felt very natural to me to bring Art Club in. And it's been really fun to see those makers come in. And I know so many artists, you know, they'll be talking, they'll have a great conversation, but their hands are busy. They're constantly like creating, they're doing something, they can't help themselves. And so I'm glad that I see new relationships and new dialogues happening over a pint. That's community, and that's what we were built to do.
And it's open to art appreciators.
Well, I go and I don't make art. Yeah, I mean, I think us art appreciators have a great place in conversations with artists because we'll ask those questions. Why do you do that? Because I don't know. I don't know how to work with gesso. I barely know how to say G-clay. Did I say that right? Oh, there we go. It's fun to see. We all think in such different ways. And so us art appreciators, I think, are really good at getting at those nuances of different thinkings and ideas.
I was wondering too, when these beers come out, how long will you keep brewing that particular beer before does it get retired? Does it keep being brewed?
Yeah. Some of our beers we continue to brew. Right now, all of the beers we put in bottles are designed to age. They're designed to be enjoyed fresh, or they're designed to keep. The flavor will evolve over time. So everything we put in bottles, you can keep for years. And so we still have a lot of these that we're selling as vintages, like a nice wine, because the flavors continue to evolve. And there's a lot of fun in being part of that evolution and trying it at different stages. Will we make them again? I mean, that's part of the fun of what we do is every batch is an iteration. Every batch is a little different, just like in art practice. It's constantly evolving and changing. We learn something new every time. So I think for now, we are on June 6th, we'll celebrate our third anniversary. Well, our second anniversary going into our third year in business. So our story's short, and I imagine things will come back, but we have a lot more ideas to exercise before we start returning.
Have you run out of beer from any particular, you know, if you made a beer, do you have some that, they're all gone, no more?
Oh yeah, that happens for sure. We are currently out of our Ice Storm Hazy IPA, and I hear about it a lot. And our apple blossom cider. You know, unlike our beers where we have access to barley and this malted barley all year round, there's only one apple harvest a year. So we have to stock up. And we actually, with King Orchards, they have the capacity to freeze apple juice after the harvest. Depending on the harvest year, if they have enough, they'll freeze some. So we're currently working on a new batch of ciders for the spring, but we're pretty low on ciders right now. Any other questions?
Yeah, you recently won some national recognition. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Thank you, Mom. That's my mom. And yes, we were very pleasantly surprised to be named the #3 best new brewery in the country by USA Today last month. So it was always our intention with Elder Piper to make world-class beer in a place we love and represent Northern Michigan proudly on a national stage. And to have that honor of #3 in the country. There were 20 breweries on this list, and we in Petoskey, we made it to #3. That was really exciting. And to me, quite a testament to what we're building at Elder Piper, but also the care we have in this community, and that we made the right choice to be in a community that's so supportive of makers like us. Yeah.
Are you working with an artist or something else? Can you tell us if you're working with a new artist? I know Teresa's probably working on beer all the time.
Yes, we have lots of beers in the works. Right now, we are actually, our big push this year is to put our beer into 16-ounce cans. And when we first opened, I'm working with Ellen Caitlin again, the woman who designed our logo and our brand. She also designed for us our initial run of can labels and logos. So I didn't display that work here, but she's making sort of a more unified look for us, inspired by Scandinavian printmaking once again, that will be our first run of cans. So I have a call with her coming up here to get into the details of that. Any other questions? Well, thank you all very much for your time, letting me talk to you about our makerspace and the beers and ciders we make up here in Petoskey. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to also, once again, I know we talked about Art Club a lot. I wanted to plug that again.
Oh, yeah.
That is tonight at Elder Piper, if anyone wants to join. I tell everyone the shtick is there is no shtick. It is just come and we're there 5 to 7 and just know that you're surrounded by people who are interested in art, are making art, and you can make some connections and we can build a community up here that just kind of helps everyone grow. For Coffee at 10 next week, we will be skipping. We have our Youth Arts Award ceremony.
That's great.
Next week, and then we will return on April 23rd with Julie Joels from Camp Daggett. So we'll see you all again for Coffee at 10 on April 23rd. Thank you.